underworld, some news was floating that they want to target me in order to scare the building community people.
The idea of like having my home, like calling some place my home, has been very like foreign.
When he's buying a home now, at the back of his mind, he's thinking, ये पैसा लेके भागेगा नहीं ना.
In India, bankruptcy is still a taboo word. It means you're done. You know, this guy is fully finished. He destroyed himself.
A gold medalist of civil engineer comes to my site. He doesn't know how to construct a building.
So they're super angry. They started slapping our employees. Elements would basically chase our employees late at night. The women at late at night, they will chase them towards their home.
Real estate needs one really sexy company. Today, if you ask anybody, do you want to get into real estate?
My dad was very disappointed. I can tell you that. And till long period of time.
Hi everyone, I'm Ishan Sharma and I am super excited to be recording this video with all of the panel guests that I have today. I've been trying to get this organized for 2 to 3 months now. It's finally happening. And this is going to be a really interesting conversation. We're going to be talking about real estate and everything about it. It's a space I have very little knowledge of because of my age and my own personal story. We'll go into that later on, but I want to first of all introduce the panel that we have today. We have Amit, who is the CEO and co-founder of NoBroker, an app I've personally used and have a great experience of in finding flats in Bangalore. I've documented that journey on social media as well. We have Niranjan, Hiranandani, sir. Thank you so much for taking out the time for doing this, sir. And
happy to be with you.
Thank you so much. And then we have Karan from WeWork India, the story that I've watched, that I've followed so much, the global story. We'll be learning about the Indian story in this podcast conversation as well. And then we have Vishal. I've been seeing you and your interviews on real estate in a lot of videos as well. So thank you so much for taking out the time for doing this. I want to start with Amit. And the question I have for all of you is, when did you all get your first real estate property and how much was it for and how did you get it? Like what age were you at and what was the behind the scenes of that?
So I bought a property in Ghatkopar from Kalpataru way back, some 12 years back. I think it was around 1.2 CR at that point of time. A very big deal of amount of money. Took a huge loan also. Yeah. And quickly moved in.
How old were you back then?
I think I was around 35 years old.
35 years?
Yeah.
All right. And like what was like the decision? Why did you want to buy there and what was the decision for?
First, lot of family pressure that you are in mid-30s, buy a home. And second, basically a feeling that you should have a home of your own and where you are not evicted after every couple of years from the landlord. I think that was a push.
My personal story is so weird. In 12 years of my schooling, I've changed 10 different cities and 14 different schools. As a result of which, the idea of like having my home, like calling some place my home, has been very like foreign. Because every year I used to be in a new place, new apartment, new flat. So like to this date, I don't have like a place that I have called my own. So that's sort of like my own personal story, which I was talking about as well. Sir, what was it for you?
Well, I didn't have to buy my own house because my father gave me a house. And the funny part is that I still stay in the same house. So in spite of making all the buildings that I do, but the property that we bought was as far back as 1975. So that's a long time.
That's the year my father was born.
Yes. So yeah, that's the time I bought my first property, which was a land in Malad and a couple of lakhs of rupees. And that's how I started. So as far as real estate is concerned. But the point is very simple that in those days, even that was a big amount of money that we had to put. And then, of course, the story is different.
And was it like for the investment perspective? Was it more for like the emotional?
No emotion. It was purpose was to, start into the real estate business. I was already doing some textiles. We were doing a weaving unit in Kandivali, Charkop in Kandivali, and did both these things a little bit. Failed in both, and ultimately couldn't decide which one to sell. But we finally decided to sell the textile unit. So I'm in real estate. If I decided to sell the real estate and continue textiles, then I would have been in the textile business. So. That's it.
Aren't you also from Charkop, Kandivali? You were telling,
yeah. I used to live in Charkop.
Okay, awesome. So Kandivali Industrial Estate, if you know the place.
Yeah.
And that's how it was there. And the story of that is even more funny. When I couldn't decide which one to sell, I got a notice from the union asking for 100% increase in wages. So I asked them, is there a mistake of a zero? So they said, no, 100% increase wages. Those were the days of Datta Samant, when, the union leader, and very aggressive union. So instead of me deciding, the letter from the union decided that I will sell off the textiles. I can't afford to pay 100% increase in wages. And so I landed up in real estate.
And sir, how did we get to here in Powai Township?
Oh, that's another long story. But to cut it short, I built 11 buildings in Lokhandwala complex. And every time I completed the building, I wasn't happy. Not with my building, but looking outside, the infrastructure was very bad. So I decided, well, one day I'll buy a place where when you look out of the window, you'll again see my buildings constructed or my area developed. And that's how I dreamt and jumped into Powai. It's pretty crazy in those days to do so, but I did.
Yeah. Like first time I entered Hiranandani Gardens was because my friend who is an IIT Bombay graduate, he was living here. So he called me at his house to shoot a podcast like this one. And so after that, he took me on like a tour in his car around this place. And this place looks different than like Bombay. This is not Bombay. This is a complete different place altogether. So that's how like my first assumption was it. So that was my experience. Karan, what was it for you? When did you get your first property?
I mean, I think very similar to Niranjan sir, where, I was born into a family which was already in real estate. So we never got houses. We were basically building, homes for everyone. And so any new development that was being built at that time, when my dad and my grandfather were basically building the business at that point in time, we should just stay there. So for a good chunk of time, I stayed in an embassy apartment where we grew up, where my grandmom still stays. Then we moved to a newer project where we ended up growing up, where me and my brothers and we spent almost like 20 years. And now I moved to another embassy project, which is much newer, where I've moved with my family. So it's never been a need to actually buy. It's kind of like, asking like a rice farm or something, have you ever eaten rice? It's just by default that, we've been fortunate and lucky to always have that roof over.
Yeah. I've always started from scratch, like in terms of like my own business. So I'm always curious about like what have you learned like from your father, like coming from a business which they've already set up, you as well, sir. So what is it that you get to learn from him?
Oh wow, so much. So I think just as growing up in a Sindhi family and then in a business family, every conversation, dinner table was, somewhat or the other connected to, to business. So you always hear that happening. But when I graduated college, or actually in my last year of college, is when I set up my first business, which was completely outside of the family business. It was a hospitality business that actually just finished 10 years of operations, last month. And that was my first learning of real world, operating and building like a business. And then from there, I spent almost like 2.5 years doing that. And then I went to work with my dad because I wanted to learn what was happening in the family business. So for 2.5 years, I just sat in meetings and I didn't even utter a word. I used to just have a notebook and I should just sit in the corner basically and just write notes. And then at the end of the day, I would just ask him, why did you say this here? Why did we do this? What was the math behind, X, Y, and Z? And it was pretty much like better than any MBA that I could have gone and done. It was a full-on apprenticeship, and in that period of time, I think the big takeaways I got was most of business or most things that you want to do, you need to take people along with you. So it's really about how you speak and deal with different types of people, being genuine, being open and as open as possible, and trying to build a relationship, build a bridge with someone can, take you much further than a particular transaction or one instance. And these are relationships are built over many years, where a lot of times there's a lot of giving more than taking that you have to learn how to do. So I think for me that was one of the biggest takeaways that I got. And the other thing, if you've ever met my dad, he's like an eternal optimist. He's a big risk taker. So just dreaming big, not feeling like nothing is impossible is such a powerful thing to have, because you just go at it every day and then finally it happens.
Yeah.
So, that,
Gives very succession vibes.
yeah, exactly.
Niranjan sir, what have you learned the number one thing from your father?
My father was a doctor. He was a ENT specialist, Padma Bhushan, and thing. But I learned a lot from him. Just what Karan said, dealing with people, human interaction. I think he was fantastic, and his clinical sense and medical sense, of course, he was a giant in that. But more than anything else, everybody loved him. His patients loved him. His people, the nurses, the doctors, other doctors, colleagues, people in society, all really had to close with him. And he could connect with anybody more than even I can. And that those people would remember him, even if they met him once. They would remember him after 10 years and say, Dr. Hiranandani said this to me when I had gone for a consultation. Or my grandmother got an operation done by your father, and she still remembers what he said to her in that after the operation was done. So I think it was human connectivity, the idea of there, the aspiration to be the best in his field, which was the medical field and all. So always the feeling that when I got into real estate, my biggest challenge was not my competition in real estate, but it was, would I be excellent that my father would look up to me and say, you have done a great job. I think that was more, gave me more happiness to hear from him than worry about what somebody in the public domain would tell me about me in that sense of the term. And there's a joke. There's a joke that when I was born, and this joke is told by my wife till my father was alive. He died 10 years ago at 96. She always used to say that when Niranjan was born, the doctor cut the umbilical cord with the mother, but forgot to cut it with the father. So I was very, very close to my dad. And, up till the last day, I think I learned a lot from him. But human interaction and behavior and dealing with people and connecting with people that they can never forget him, even today, or people who dealt with him, is something I've still not been able to achieve. It's my aspiration that I may get close to that part of it at some point of time.
Yeah. Was your father okay when you told him you want to enter real estate? Because that time real estate was even considered more notorious.
Oh, very, very, very challenging. My only advantage was that my elder brother, 10 years older to me, had already taken up medicine. So I could convince him only because I said that, you already have one doctor in the family, and how many people can be, take your place, and one is more than sufficient. He wasn't satisfied, to be honest with you. And my younger brother took up medicine, but he left it and joined me instead of continuing the medicines part of it. But my dad was very disappointed. I can tell you that. And till a long period of time, it was much later in the day when I think he thought that, I'm doing good work in real estate, that he was kind of satisfied with the situation. But took a long time, really, for him to get the feeling that he was okay with it.
But why was real estate more notorious back then?
It was notorious beyond belief. The only person connected with real estate were people like Haji Mastan, Yusuf Patel, Dawood, all those people, Underworld, Black Money, all that was connected with real estate. There was not a single corporate at the millions of miles away who would even dream about getting into real estate. Credibility in the real estate business came maybe 20 years later. And now, of course, it's a great business to be in, but not at that time. So it took a long time to bring about that credibility. But my father was happy that I was able to hold on to some of the ethical values which he believed in, and also the fact that we made some position compared to what he was. Still haven't got any awards of that kind. But he was Padma Bhushan and Dhanvantri Award winner, and it was tremendous.
Yeah. You would have seen in all Hindi movies, not the always the villain or someone is somehow connected to being a builder, real estate,
Yeah.
throwing people off of empty buildings. That's always the scene
but and
that you see.
Karan, you're right, and you will see not only that, no corporate in those days would dare to think about entering into real estate. It was much, much later in the day after we were there, maybe 20 years after that. So it's just 15 to 20 years when corporates have gone into this business. Earlier, nobody would dare because the line was terrible.
In that era, I've heard that basically builder used to get a lot of threats from the gangsters.
Oh, I had also. Yes.
You also
How
used
do
to
you-
get threats from the gangsters.
How
Of
do you
course.
handle such threats?
Sorry?
How did you handle such threats? Just curious.
The only
And
thing
क्या बोलते थे वो?
I first of all, I'm not scared of dying. And so it never afraid me. If my destiny is to die, even the Prime Minister of India couldn't be protected by his own security. So I'd never believed in security. But one day, there was a police commissioner, Mendoza, who insisted that I should get security because the underworld, some news was floating that they want to target me in order to scare the building community people. And so I had security for 6-8 months and did it. But I haven't had security before that, and I have never had a security after that. So, but it was that 6 months period when I was, they insisted that I should have it and all that. I personally believe that if somebody wants to kill you, you really can't get away with it. And certainly, we are not the kind of mental thing to have a Z plus security or something like that, where safety and security can be done for somebody who targets anybody.
Very interesting. I never knew about that.
I think all the builders who have come in the business in the last 10 years,
Yeah.
they can't imagine how tough it was 30 years before.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that must be true in every sector of like business, like even before stock market or जो भी आप बोल रहे हैं उसमें सब में there's some sort of risk involved.
But I think the scale of variance that was there in construction, just when I read some of the instances, just when people give it in passing references, because I think most people don't want to touch that subject, but when they give it in passing reference, you get a glimpse as to how brazen it used to be. And you actually needed real courage to be in the line and show you have money. Because we've seen shootouts at traffic signals in Mumbai. I'm sure Mr. Hiranandani will remember. I think those
And
days.
also that was a very high growth time also. Post 1992, post the budget.
Liberalization.
The next 5-10 years had crazy growth. So
But more than the crazy growth also was the fact that the credibility came into the business. And I think that was more important, that good people wanted to get into the line. The line got cleaned up. And it was really good that, for example, there was not a single bank which lent money when I started business to real estate operations. Zero. And that was much later. Then even home loans, it was only HDFC, ICICI, and I think Citibank, which really started home loans. So even that was much later. I borrowed money at 2% interest per month from private money lenders to do my business in those days and times. Wouldn't dream of it today. So I think that was different, and everything changed over a period of time. But to see the result of that, let me give you a fast forward for what has happened in those 20-25 years of bad time. Today, Mumbai, the richest city in India, NCR is competing, today has 50% population living in slums even today. And half the people can afford to buy a house of the size which they are living in if you produced houses of that size. So the point is, because of the non-credibility of real estate and the fact that we really, because of the situation being at that time like that, half my population lives in Jhopatpattis today in Mumbai. And of course, now government is going to come up with a solution wherein the next 5-7 years, we'll eliminate all Jhopatpattis in Mumbai.
How would you do that?
I think the government will announce it very soon.
But one thing about Mumbai, and I think right now after going to Bangalore, I tend to notice that Bangalore, as one person told me, is Mumbai light. Okay, similar trajectory to Mumbai. Is that you on one side you have slums like Mr. Hiranandani mentioned. Other side there is such demand for quality supply. Okay, now just think of it. We are in this location, Hiranandani Gardens, Powai. It's actually in the middle of nowhere. You come to think of it, it's not close to a railway station. It's not close to a metro station. There's no major economic hub close by. Yet, prices over here, I don't know what the last rates are, but it would be above 40,000 per square feet based on the ads that I see, which are close to the older buildings of South Bombay.
No, even the present buildings of South Bombay. The Parel and other areas, our prices are same.
True. So that paucity of quality supply just drives up whatever supply that is of high quality. And I think the same thing I noticed in Bangalore as well. Now, Bangalore and I think most Indian cities, our civic governance is a complete mess. So it's up to the builder. He has to create a mini city and give it to all of us. And the guy who wants it, that quality first world experience, he's willing to pay that extra buck. He'll stretch himself because when he comes back, he wants to feel good. And I'm sure, I don't know, probably Mr. Hiranandani can disagree over here. I don't think Powai would be as, pleasurable an experience if Mumbai's municipal corporation had just got the basics right. Like here, when you see a footpath, it's colorful, it's wide. I love to walk in it. But because when you walk out, there's no footpath. If there was a footpath where you could walk in, you would like it. You like Powai, but you would not be mesmerized by it. Like, whenever I do shows in Powai and I ask guests that, why are you staying over here? Why are you paying so much rent? Vishal, because when I come out, I feel good. I feel good to be here. I think that's the edge.
Thank you.
Though, of course, the pricing of it right now is just the way Mr. Hiranandani mentioned, it's close to Parel. That tells you.
It's probably double of anything you'll get in Bangalore at the highest level.
No, double, no, I would say.
Still not even reached. Maybe 30,000 is a struggle.
Yeah, I would say triple.
But I think, Karan, that's because, would that be on carpet area or would we compare that on super area, super built area?
Like to like, whatever you would compare, it is not even close to anything that Bombay, is right now. And I think Bangalore, because also a lot of people moved there, and most of the wealth created in Bangalore is actually professional wealth, people who have grown in large companies or these IT companies, through the ranks, and basically, generated most of their wealth through that, versus Bombay is very industrial, a lot of old money, and people have really have real solid wealth where they're able to actually spend on a huge house, or in today in Worli, apartments are going at 80-90 crores a unit, which will never happen in Bangalore, at least for a long period of time.
That way, Bangalore is much more homogeneous. So the rates would basically be 10 to 14,000. That range would be there across the city.
Yeah, and that sells fast.
Yeah.
But you won't see many projects that are...
And then there are belts which are basically those startup belts like Kormangla and HSR layout
The
and
villas are more
Sarjapur and
famous
Outer
over
Ring
there.
Road.
People would
Where the
rather
startup
get
guys, the
that.
way in which you said, sorry.
Yeah, so I think in Bombay, people will like being deep in the center of the city and don't mind paying crazy amounts, whereas in Bangalore, people don't mind going outside of the city as long as they get more space. They'll pay more for that than being in proximity,
That is what my case is,
Yeah.
right? So when I first came to Bangalore, I got a place which is in South Bangalore. So it is 2.5 hours from the airport. So that's where my parents live right now. And then when my co-founder graduated, we got a space to set up the office and to sleep there in North Bangalore, which is again on the other side of Bangalore. 30 minutes from the airport, but still very much away from the center of the city, which is Kormangla, in the Nagar area. So that's how we look at it.
I think Mumbai's appeal is that we will do anything to be close to the location we want to be in. We'll take a small home, it'll be ugly building, it'll be anything. Okay. I can't imagine, like in Mumbai, now the smallest 2 BHK is a 330 square feet apartment. I'm sure anybody outside Mumbai will laugh. Okay. Means I'm sure at your age, and even when you were at college, just the mere thought of being in such a compact apartment, you will say, screw it, I'll go far away, but I want a respectable size
I think that's the appeal for Bangalore, that in Bangalore, no matter where your office is, you can always find an affordable house to live in close proximity. There'll always be, but in Bombay, you can't. In Bombay, if your office in South Bombay and you don't have a budget, you will have to live far away. But I think the good thing about Bangalore is there are always some pockets, be it Kormangala, be it Indiranagar, in just in vicinity where it is affordable rent.
That's actually a trait even which is pretty similar to NCR. Barring the one or two key streets that are there is affordability in every location. One building will stand out like a DLF Camellias. But that will set the benchmark for the neighboring plots to a certain extent. But otherwise, there's affordability in most locations. In a place like Mumbai, that thing goes completely out of whack.
But like, how does it work? Like DLF launches a whole, apartment building and it gets sold out even before like it is launched and all. And it's all like super luxurious, super expensive. How does it work over there? Like we see these newspaper reports that they have and they say that we're all sold out. And they're advertising that, we are sold out.
So see, NCR, I think, is a master of narrative. NCR developers, since you mentioned the advertisement, which came out on the first day of first sale, I think their attempt is very strong that they have to push a narrative because unlike markets like Mumbai
I don't know if it's that. I think it's track record that people have trust that someone like with a brand name or developers with brand name will deliver and be on time, and it will always be a quality product. So as soon as one of those are launching, you will see that the entire demand will flock there rather than dissipate into too many different types of unorganized or smaller developers. So
but now perhaps the pendulum is shifting a little too extreme. So now I believe that in Gurgaon it is becoming really unaffordable to have a house to live in because the prices have really zoomed in. And NCR has always been that gambling market where the prices either become just crash, because even in 2012, 2020, every other market time corrected. NCR was the only market which price corrected also.
I think one of the jokes that many brokers say about NCR is that many projects get sold on day one, but there are many cancellations on day two.
Cancellation bhi ho sakte hain.
Of course. See, the thing is because it's often a flipping market, and unlike in Mumbai where you pay 10% to register at that point, there that speculative culture is very vibrant.
So the objective is that the moment it is launched, you pay 5 or 10%, and then you don't pay any other basically demand which comes. You are okay for the penalty which builder is eventually going to levy on you. You keep the unit theoretically for 6 months, 1 year, and then you flip it. So for 100 rupees of flat, you have paid 10 rupees. Now if the flat basically goes even for 130 rupees, you have made 30 upon 10, 300%, 200% gain. So that flipping culture is very high, which leads to a lot of
NCR investors actually should be in the F&O market.
Yeah, they're closer to speculative activities. Yeah,
they're the true F&O traders.
No, but Vishal, tell me about like your first property. When did you buy it? How much was it for? And why did you buy it?
So I bought it in 2009 when I was 26. It was about 1.9. I bought it because in Mumbai, and that was because the building was almost complete. That time, the choice of builders that you had was pretty poor. Okay, so you had to be very sure that the building is almost complete or complete. The developer needed some money because of the Lehman crash and liquidity got drained out. I was a willing buyer. I bought it when it was almost like 95% complete, but that last 5% was also a drag, huh? So the thing is, one of the most deceptive things is when you see a building, superstructure there, building ban gaya, aur kya karne ka? That's when I learned superstructure and completion both are very different.
How is it different?
So in terms of the finishing that you need to do, the time that it takes to get done, the commitments, the OC process, and see the thing is, if a builder says, Vishal, it'll get done in 6 months, you plan it in your head. The problem, I think, for that era, and even today's era, if you go at the tier 2, 3, 4 level, everybody wants to give you a date which is not real. 3 mahine mein ho jayega. So you have to hope that it gets done in 3 months. But when you go after 3 months or 3 months or 3 months, if he just tells you upfront, it'll take 1 year, you can plan accordingly. So that was a very good learning for me. So I often say that, buying under construction and ready, it's like you're doing a marriage deal. Okay. Under construction is arranged marriage. You have seen the girl, you've seen the house 2 or 3 times, so take a long-term bet based on that. Obviously, you can go wrong, as many people go wrong. In love marriage, ye ghar hai, walls theek hai, building kya hai, kitne floors ka hai, lift is good or bad.
DMart kidhar hai?
You exactly know that. And then you take a call. If something goes wrong after that, then it's an issue of like in buildings, right? You bought it when it's very good, but maintenance becomes very bad. The boy becomes fat, the girl becomes whatever. So things can go wrong. But you know exactly what you are taking at the time of doing the deal.
I think that was a very good analogy to understand that. But I want to like talk from the perspective of a 25-year-old, right? Someone who has gotten a first job. Now, how should they think about real estate, right? Should they think of buying? Should they think of renting? If buying, then when buying? And like, how should their mindset be? Maybe they are in like Mumbai, Bangalore, Delhi, like the top metropolitan cities of India. So how should they think about real estate in general is what I wanted to ask. You can start with Amit.
So on NoBroker platform, what we've seen over the past 10 years is that the average age of buying has been consistently coming down. So earlier, what was between 40 to 45 years is now between 25 to 35. So, and there's a combination of multiple things. One is nuclear family is now too high in terms of the percentage. There's a lot of family pressure also. Once a couple basically gets married, they want something to call their own home. And post-COVID, what has happened is that people have realized that they want a home which has a study space, which has a small office space, which has a balcony. So there are specific requirements which now people have. And home loan has also become very easier. So 2 decades back, taking a loan was seen negatively by everybody that, okay, you're taking a loan. But now home loan is just basically a click of button. Everybody, if you have good credit profile, everybody is happy to pay you home loan. And a lot of good builders are there who are making amazing properties. Every year, the standard of properties is becoming better and better. Whatever embassy made 5 years back, now the new building basically is far good in terms of amenities. So average age is basically coming down and down. Although the flip side is that the moment you buy a home, you also burden yourself with a monthly EMI. Now, because the salaries have been going up pretty good, especially in the IT sector and startups and technology sector, so this has been fine. Otherwise, somebody can argue as to what is the right age to basically take a home. So perhaps the right age would be when you have decent savings, so that it doesn't pinch you. Because today's youth also wants to take a lot of foreign vacations, wants to also live life, not just pay EMI, earn salary. So there's a right combination which is required. Post-COVID, the rental yield has increased a lot across cities. So for example, in Bangalore, what was 2% rental yield is now 3.5%. That has also prompted many people to feel that, hey, in the past 3 years, my rent has become doubled. So why shouldn't I buy a home? So that is also prompting many people to buy a home because they feel it's better to pay that EMI rather than paying to my landlord. So multiple factors which are now basically making the age lesser and lesser for people to buy property. Although I personally feel that people haven't seen commercial property a lot. Indian typically focus too much on residential properties and they try to basically make it a mix of living and investment. But if your objective is to just invest, then they're amazing small. When I mean commercial property, I mean just a 100 square feet shop, which ticket size is lower and the rental yield is amazing. It is 8 to 10%, and the price appreciation is also good. So perhaps small commercial space is something which is broadly neglected by Indians. The HNIs are very good at it. So, and the typical business families are good at it. So that is perhaps a space which more Indians should look at, especially when they are sub 30 years old.
Yeah. I have experience. Currently, I am in the middle of changing houses. So the last landlord that we had was like, we were paying 44,000. And then the rent agreement, the lease expired. And now the new rate is 55,000 for the same place. And that is North Bangalore. That's not even like the central Bangalore. And so that is what prompted us to change houses. So now we are paying 52,000 for a bigger place in the same apartment building. So it's just weird how rapidly the rent shoots up, especially in a place like Bangalore. And like that always like makes me wonder, like, might as well be paying this much in EMIs and seeing if I could actually have a place of my own. So
can I add on that?
Yeah.
I do believe, as far as Indians are concerned, by and large, there is no social security after you retire. And your experience relating to higher rents may happen that after you retire, the rents will just be unaffordable if you want a place which you want to live in. So I do believe that at a particular point of time, which will obviously not be when you start life, but if you can get it there, whether it's 25 or 35 is irrelevant. The question is, I think everybody should buy a house. It doesn't necessarily mean you live in the house that you buy. You could even, give it out and take anything on rent. But there are three things which are important. Number one, social security. I think it's very important for every Indian to get a house if you can afford to buy it. Number two, the loans which you're getting is the lowest rates of interest as compared to any commercial loan from anybody. Number three, you get an income tax benefit which you do for the tax deduction that you do. The combination of these three make it imperative for everyone to buy a house, not necessarily live there. So a lot of people have jobs which are changing. So you'll buy a house in Bangalore, but you'll get a job in Delhi. Nothing wrong. You can give that house on rent. So I think basically every Indian must aspire to buy a house. What is the timing of that is different as far as this is concerned. And the aspiration will always be to have a little bigger house than what you can afford today, because you're looking at a forward-looking idea. And I think with inflation being 5-6%, in interest rates earlier was 6.5%, today they are 8%. If you take income tax benefit of it, the net effect is 6%, inflation is 5-6%. You're anyway covered. You're actually paying the interest which is there is actually inflation money. So I think on the basis of it, you must buy a house and not really rent it beyond a certain period of time. Or if you have to rent it, it's fine, but you also buy a house wherever you want to do. Is what I am recommending to the young people, that they must buy a house as far as this comes. The rental is a damn good idea also, but then I think more developers who are doing commercial, especially our friend Karan and his father, I think will look at rentals also, but just now the yields are lower. So that's okay, but I think over a period of time, this is also going to come to be a story.
Yeah. But sir, what is peculiar about the Mumbai real estate space, which you will not notice in other parts of the country, according to you?
Every city is different. The growth of Delhi and NCR, Delhi didn't grow because of various restrictions, so NCR grew. NCR had a limitation to growth, so you got Noida to grow. In Mumbai, we are surrounded three sides by water, so we had a limitation. Now that limitation has disappeared. All of a sudden, we got a bridge across the sea, and in 15 minutes, you can reach New Bombay from South Mumbai. So if you can do that, we're now going to get new areas will level up. So in a 2 years' time, the growth of Panvel and all these areas across the harbour, you're going to see a growth which you will never have imagined. So whatever area development Mumbai has taken place across the harbour is going to be a huge development. Also, of course, there is a redevelopment of the city which is growing tremendously, and that is another factor which you're going to see. So the development is different from Bangalore in that sense of the term, that the redevelopment space which is taking place, plus the new place where we're having a new airport across the harbour in Panvel, these are the areas which you will see a huge amount of growth in the next 2 years. Tremendous.
So Panvel Nikalna would be actually like a real meme if people will actually say it.
Yeah. Well, actually, if you look at it, these new areas, wherever infrastructure is developed, so whether it's the airport, we have a rail terminus, we have an airport, we have a port, we have land sea air terminals, you have the Delhi-Mumbai industrial corridor ending over there, the Western Express Highway, the connectivity and all that is happening. The railway line, the railway actually is being extended from Panvel to Karjat. All these and other factors indicate that these areas are going to grow, including places like Alibag and all.
Yeah. But sir, do you think that these cities are getting unlivable? Like in the sense that a lot of people my age are doing remote work, they're working in companies outside of the country, and so they would rather want to live in a city like
So
Pune.
let me give you an example. Mumbai had 190 kilometers of suburban rail for 65 years. In the next 2 years, we will add 300 kilometers of metro. So what you didn't do for 65 years, you're going to do in the next 2 years. You're now opening up enough land across the harbour equal to half the land of Mumbai empty. So the scope of development is going to be huge. So the answer is what you saw in the last 50, 60 years is not what you're going to see in the next 50, 60 years. It's going to be very different. We have to be prepared for that kind of change. As far as Bangalore, Delhi, Pune, all these cities that you see, you develop 360 degrees. You can go Gurgaon side, you can go Greater Noida side, Jaipur side, all these different sides you can go. Similarly, in the case of Bangalore and Pune and other places. In Mumbai, we didn't have that benefit till today. Now that we've got this connection, the growth is going to be even better and faster. So, but it takes time before the development actually takes place over there. So, but I'm very sure that the development is going to do. And how these prices are going to grow in the new areas is different. And whether, all the other places which are being developed are going to sustain that kind of development. But new areas are definitely going to come up in the next 2 years.
But Karan, tell me about commercial real estate and how does it work? Because I think people know about like the residential real estate. They have a good idea about that. But like, how does the commercial side work?
No, so I think across the board, actually, people, at least India, is not really fully educated on how real estate, works from an investment standpoint, whether it's residential or commercial for that matter. I think Sir alluded to, the fact of financing being available, when you have a home and you can actually raise, money against it. So let's say you have a home worth 1 crore where you actually put money down and bought it for 1 crore. You're able to raise 1 crore in, debt from it and use it either, tomorrow you want to put it in the stock market and grow it at 12%. You're making now a spread of whatever the interest is on the home loan versus what you might earn, which is basically like free money for you to really make. And then tomorrow when that property value goes to 120 or 150, you can refinance the loan again and take 150 on it. So you've now made 50 lakhs pure profit on, or at least you have 50 lakhs liquidity on an investment of 1 crore that you made. So that education, I think, is wide in like the US market. In America, it's not as wide here on how people understand how to use real estate as a source of, raising cheap capital for themselves that they can put back into their own business, that they can use to start a new business or actually grow that money even further. Commercial is a very similar, going through a very similar process now, where earlier it was similar to what Amit was saying. People are buying individual units. In Gurgaon, if you see a lot, or even in Bombay, to be honest, a lot of buildings you'll see with 60, 70 landlords. I have a couple of buildings across the country where it's built by a marquee developer, but almost 80 landlords have units in these buildings. As WeWork, we lease a lot of these buildings. So that was historically how you could get commercial rental, or like a yield where that, let's say, a good company's taken the space and I'm going to get a share of that rental if I buy a chunk of it. Today that has transitioned to the REIT format. So the real estate trust that exists, and most of the large players have now listed since sort of 2019.
How many are there right now?
I think there's around.
And there were 2 before.
No, there's the Embassy REIT was the first REIT to list, and I think there was Brookfield, there's Mindspace. So there are 3 major REITs right now, and then there are a few more, in the pipeline that are going to come. So a REIT is essentially making a stock out of a building. So it's taking a building that has a certain income, a rental income, and basically converting it into a listed stock that any retail investor can now basically purchase directly from the stock market. So before, what used to happen was you would see a building, this is my office space, the 5th floor in this building, this unit is what I own. Today you can buy, let's say, into an Embassy REIT, for 10,000 rupees or, 1 lakh or 2 lakh, and get the benefit of the entire Embassy portfolio, which might be about, 60 million square foot now that is listed basically, across the REIT. And so in 2019, the government came out with a regulation to do this. It was a reason to bring transparency into the real estate market. It was a more tax efficient structure. So a REIT, the income from a REIT, is 8% net of taxes. Whereas if you were essentially buying, commercial real estate as a unit, you will get taxed on that income as well, and it allowed for sort of spreading risk. Whereas in one, if you were owning one building or one unit in a building, tomorrow if the tenant leaves, you're not going to get the rent. But if you buy into the REIT, you know that it's a regular rental income. The portfolio, you're getting rent from across a larger portfolio than one, basically one unit. So it's a great way for anyone who doesn't know about real estate, wants an exposure into commercial real estate, or wants their portfolio to have a very steady annuity income generating asset where you get basically almost a 7-8% dividend every quarter, directly into your bank account. And as those companies, those portfolios do well, share the price of rentals go up, property value goes up, or operations is being managed properly. There's also the stock appreciation that happens when you own the REIT. So it's almost a double whammy, benefit that an investor can get. And again, like if you look at markets like Singapore, the US, there are multiple REITs. I mean, most developers in commercial only operate actually through REITs. The REIT is a great way. Today, you can, in the Indian context, you can have only about, I think, 10 or 20% of the REIT under construction. So it's largely stable, leased out income with small amount of risk, so that that these REITs are actually growing and the portfolio will expand over time. So to me, actually, in today's market, when you have to look at real estate exposure, that's probably the most efficient vehicle for any investor, and can happen with a very low ticket size. Usually, otherwise, in commercial real estate, if you need to buy a unit, it's going to be a couple of, at least tens of lakhs, or at least a couple of crores to get a decent, where you have a marquee tenant who is stable and you can trust to be there for a long period of time.
Yeah. And is that like the only way to invest in real estate commercially?
No, you can obviously go and buy space from a developer who's, selling units. You can still do that. And a more traditional mindset, people still prefer that, to go and say, oh, this is my unit, or this is the office space that I have. This is for my son. This is for my daughter, which I want to see, touch, feel. But I think and this is where I can come back to that education part, as people get more educated and understand how efficient maybe a REIT structure is. I think it's quite clear that is the better way to go into doing the investment, but everyone has a preference of their.
Now, what is also happening is that there are many startups which basically offer you fractional ownership.
Yeah.
So what basically happens is, suppose there is a particular office space which has been taken by an MNC. Now it's a large unit, and the entire property may be, say, worth few crores. So what happens is that multiple people come together and they basically split it into a number of stocks. Each person subscribes to those number of stocks, and then whatever rent you receive is basically through that particular financial subsidiary is given to each of the unit holders. So fractional ownership is also a very good concept by which you can have this touch feeling also, because this particular building, this particular floor is mine.
That is now progressing even one step further, where the government's about to launch this MSME REIT regulation, which is an individual building also can get listed as a stock. Today, REITs have to have a minimum size, before it can be classified into the REIT structure, and has to have, a couple of million square foot before they can do that. But individual landlords, individual asset owners who have just one building today, instead of going out and trying to sell to multiple investors, would be able to list it as an MSME REIT, and you could actually just go and buy it in a more tax efficient way through the listed stock. which will slowly come out.
Yeah, you were talking about fractional ownership, right? I was in a party in Bangalore, and this guy comes up to me, and he's like, he creates Airbnb villas, rents out those villas, and he's like, you can invest 5 lakhs, and I'll pay you 30% every quarter. And so what he would basically do is he would do like some deal with the owner of that villa, would transform that into Airbnb like apartments, and they would then give it out on Airbnb itself. And it's like a massive business in Bangalore at least.
No, and another thing which is happening is that many people want to have a vacation home, but they don't use it for the entire year. So you want a vacation home in, say, Lonavala or Ooty, but you are not going to use it for entire year. So another concept which is now pretty prevalent is that a company will basically buy a unit for you and for multiple people others. So 10 people basically pull in, buy that property, and either they go and stay, or it is made a Airbnb and like a small villa, like a hotel, and other people would come and vacation there. And whatever income is generated is basically equally split among the people. So you have the satisfaction of owning a vacation home and also not paying the full amount and also being able to use it for a few days in a year.
And actually without the hassle.
Without the hassle.
Most people think if I want to buy, like one of the biggest fancies in the major cities, मुझे गोवा में कुछ होना चाहिए. But then reality strikes you, it's so far, can I administer, can I manage? And people drop the idea. So these sort of tools, and I've realized one thing, that inherent desire to have an investment in real estate now, it's there in many countries, but I don't think it's as strong anywhere as it is there in India. Be it a home or something else. ये मेरी property है. The idea is just that can we get compliance and can we get the right set of players to ensure that people have trust in that system. Once you have trust, then things go through the roof in India.
Real estate considered generational, as in something that you could pass down easily, like jewelry
like a Patek
or
Philippe.
gold. I mean, maybe better than that, because that is, sometimes it appreciates, sometimes depreciates, but land is limited, and space is limited. So, that is something that is inherent in Indian, that you want your son to have some security, or future generations to have security, that everything else goes, at least this apartment will be there one day, you can do something with the apartment, or you can stay here, he'll have a roof over his head. That mentality is big in China also, is another place where this is big. The US also, if you look at in the 70s, 80s, was largely family businesses, really, that became big, large corporations. A lot of it was from real estate, like the Rockefellers of the world, and all of that is essentially real estate.
So really, the combination of both the factors of wanting to own a home, have a second home also, and be able to rent it out is something we are also looking at very seriously at Alibag and other places. And wherever we have studied this concept, I think the demand for this in the next couple of years is going to be huge. So we do believe that holiday homes and other places, and again, the same problem of being able to look after the home. It's easy to buy a home sometimes and very difficult to consistently look after it if you're not using it all the time. I mean, COVID story being apart, when people did go to the second home and stay there. But otherwise, it's extremely difficult to look after it. So I think a combination of buying a second home and having the ability to have a proper system in place, hospitality system, looking after the place and renting it out. The combination of all that is really, I think, the next story which is going to grow exponentially. So because first of all, the numbers which were there earlier were so small that I think the growth story is going to be 100% growth every year plus in terms of it, because the size itself is too small. But I think in the next couple of years, you will see that happening across the country, and especially in destinations where people would go for a holiday home in terms of it, whether it's Goa, whether it's Alibag, whether it's Khandala, as you mentioned, and I'm sure there are lots of places in North India and South India, which are actually similar places that are going to be there. I think the second home concept with this type of structure where hospitality is endured, maintenance is taken care of. I think combination of these two is going to work.
Vishal talked about trust, and we hear these stories every now and then of developers running away after doing some shady business. So how do you make sure how do you make sure that people actually trust you? How do you build that?
So two things. One, what all of us talked about is brand and commitment, which you have already done for the last so many years, whether it's 5 years or 50 years, it doesn't matter, but it's all about trust of people who have delivered on a consistent basis. The government has again come up with the second part of it, which is RERA, which is Real Estate Regulatory Act, wherein 70% of the money that you are giving it to the developer is being escrowed and cannot be diverted. So if he is able to sell a substantial number of apartments, and maybe even if it's left, the money which is going into the company in the RERA account cannot be diverted elsewhere. And that type of control, which is there at least, and in Maharashtra, it's very, very tight. I think the chances of failure have been mitigated to a great extent. And even if you see the failures of current projects, there are more of them which were ongoing before RERA came into place. And those which have been listed after RERA has been done, or the starting is done now, most of them, I would say 90% of them are really getting fulfilled. So I think, while earlier it was quite a low percentage. So I think that is a safety factor. The second safety factor, the first being trust and the brand which the company has and delivery in the last whatever years they have. And the second, RERA itself has come to protect a large number of buyers. So I think these two things put together has been helpful.
And another thing which is happening is that customers have also learned the hard way in the past few years. So while RERA is helping a lot, but you can also see the premium which good builders are getting. For example, we spoke about DLF, Prestige in Bangalore. So now this consolidation is also happening, that grade B or C developers who did not have a good track record, people are not preferring them. People are going towards graded developers. They are happy to pay a premium, but getting a house which will be made as per the promises, as per the timelines. So the industry is also getting rewarded financially for fulfilling your promises. So that's also happening from a financial point of view.
But Ishan, one thing that Amit's talking, consolidation, one trend that I'm seeing very visible almost on a real-time basis is that last 3 or 4 years, these big branded builders gained a lot because people are willing to trust them with the money. Now, most of these projects by these branded builders, when they sold, they took a handsome premium, 25%, 30% above the market. Now when possession is happening, there's big disappointment. You're getting the apartment, okay, admittedly. Earlier the expectation was like Mr. Hiranandani pointed that you don't know what you'll also get, right? Now you know you'll get the apartment. But the finish, the quality, the handover process, many people ask, was it worth paying 30% premium for this? And this I'm mentioning is an overwhelming majority of branded builders who in Mumbai. So I think that's the next step that has to be challenged. Earlier the battle was delivery versus no delivery. The branded builder assured that I'll give you the home. Now we're reaching the second stage. The guy is saying, big deal, you gave me the home. You promised A, B, C, D. That's not there. So I think we're going to watch this battle play out in the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
So I think further consolidation.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is there's consolidation by a brand, and you're going to see further consolidation in terms of quality, delivery, and commitment, which is, I think, good for the industry in the long run.
You'll see that you'll see that customers, at least before you would buy into a new project, you would pay slab by slab. That was the mechanism, right? Every time a new slab is casted on the building, the builder goes to the customers who have bought and said, your next installment is due next installment. So you could own a home by paying in chunks. But today people are, if it's not a big builder, willing to pay one check. But when the apartment is actually fully ready, OC is received, they can actually touch and feel all of the finishes. They're happy to do that rather than get the benefit of pricing or whatever it is, because they know that the next day they can actually move in versus waiting, let's say, 10 years for your home to develop when through a developer who doesn't know what they're doing or has done something generally wrong. And what you're seeing with the branded guys is that because they have delivered the track record so often and so well, that when they launch, it's getting sold out almost immediately because that trust is there that this building will get done, the quality will be, uh, satisfactory for me to basically.
But Ishan, from a real estate industry point of view, this trend is very, very obvious. That few years back, there was a long tail of builders who will deliver projects in any city. Some prominent projects, and then basically lots of small builders who will do. Now this consolidation is happening. In the past few years, the grade A builders have snatched away a huge amount of market share from the small builders. Customers have also shifted it. And perhaps this is how basically maturity happens, that earlier of any industry happens, that earlier builders did not do what they promised. So RERA came, government basically got involved. And then once that started happening, people started giving more premium to those builders who complete on time. And now then there's a secondary level that, okay, I want even more, or I want 100% promise fulfillment on other things apart from the timeline. But consolidation is the trend in this industry, where the market is consolidating towards builders who have a good track record. And you can see the stock market results for real estate companies. In the past couple of years, real estate stocks have zoomed. And in terms of revenue also, it has been for players like Prestige, many players, 60, 70, 80% revenue growth within a single year. So it has been great for the industry.
So, Ishan, like Amit saying that these stocks have gone up. For the longest time, every fund manager you would speak to, he said, "Mujhe real estate pe exposure chahiye." Okay. But how do I take it? Is he a fraud? Is he not a fraud? That ability to discern was very limited. You had very few options, right? So how do you play the real estate sector? You say, I'll not buy real estate stocks. I'll buy the paint company. I'll buy the ceramics company. I'll buy the home loan company.
Second degree.
The moment builders, some of them who removed that, mindset gap, don't worry, I'm trustworthy. Like just see the numbers of stocks like Godrej, Oberoi, Embassy, and the Bangalore Prestige guys, right? It's at PE multiples which people can't imagine, because people want exposure. You just provided them, I'm ready for you. So I think if more and more developers realize, Vikas Oberoi said a very good statement. He said, the market pays you a humongous premium to be good. Sometimes I myself think that do we deserve it? So if more developers just take that one simple learning, it'll be healthy for everybody.
And that effect is evident in terms of cash collected by builders. So earlier, for many of our customers, it was easy to pay cash to builder, a percentage of it. Now, many of the listed builders, they don't accept cash because they have learned it that it is better to book it as full revenue and take this higher PE multiple in the stock market rather than basically trying to save some tax here.
What is that?
So suppose earlier what used to happen is that if you want to buy a house from a builder, and if the flat say costs 1 crore rupees, you will say, I will pay 70 in number one and 30 in cash. And the builder will accept it. Even the grade A builders will accept it. But now what is the advantage is that, okay, you will not pay tax to the government for this 30 lakhs. But now, because the stock market is rewarding good builders very well, it makes sense to collect all 1 crore in number one, so that you can show the revenue to the stock market that 1 crore, my revenue has gone up. And the P multiple which the market is giving is much high. So there is no point in basically trying to save some penny here and there. Isn't it, Karan?
Yeah, I agree.
No, but one more thing is important to understand, that whenever any market, and it's not only real estate market, but take any product that you're creating, there is consolidation in all industry. So whether you have car manufacturing, whether you have TV manufacturing, whether you have, any goods that you see, over a period of years, there is going to be consolidation. So, there's nothing wrong if consolidation takes place, and the benefit of it goes to the end customer in terms of trust, quality, all these aspects of it have to take place. And that is the best thing which has happened for the client. Ultimately, if consolidation does take place. So it's not about small or big. It's a question of how much delivery is happening in the marketplace, which is A, trustworthy, B, commitment and quality is delivered. So the better the quality this thing is there, it doesn't matter if 20 companies are running instead of 2,000 companies, if the quality across the board is fantastic. And I think happens in car industry, automobile. How many car companies are there? 7, 8 in the whole country and in the world, maybe 20, 30 prominent car companies. So I believe that it won't happen to that extent in real estate, but consolidation will and should and shall happen. So I don't think this thought process of it, the more quality builders that come up into it, like you mentioned that you're not getting quality even among good builders, which is bad. I mean, it's extremely bad even for me to hear it, that a quality builder and a person who's branded is not giving quality. That's a sad position to hear for somebody in the industry. And it's not nice for anybody to hear it. So my view is, if that is happening, then consolidation should be there all the more in order to see that good people grow. And as you said, the market is rewarding you for it. So wonderful, reward them, let them grow and give better and better product to the marketplace. So I think it's a win-win-win situation for everybody that we are talking about. It's not a bad idea in terms of what is really happening in the marketplace in terms of doing. So next couple of years, good for the client, good for the customer.
So, Ishan, more cities have to actually follow the Bangalore model, where delivery is reasonably assured, it's of decent quality, happens pretty quickly, so on and so forth. If you talk to an NCR buyer, okay, take out the top names, the DLF types and all. When he's buying a home now, at the back of his mind, he's thinking, ye paisa leke bhagega nahi na. That will always be there, okay. A Mumbai buyer will be a slightly upgraded one. He'll not think that, ki bhagega nahi. But his mind will be, again, take the top 5% or top 3% builders out. If I'm talking about the remaining. Ghar milega ki nahi na? Okay. He'll have that fear in his mind. The Bangalore guy has the most demands. Is this house tech friendly? I can't imagine a buyer in Mumbai asking that question. NCR, so forget it. He'll just look at 3 BHK, 4 BHK, swimming pool, big plot, etc. So I think more and more people, if we can emulate the Bangalore standard in terms of delivery, quality, timeliness, that will be the healthiest thing for India as a market.
But why does it happen in Bangalore and not in like something like NCR?
So I think Bangalore has a consolidated set of numbers, right? Who have, I'm sure Karan can explain more on this.
I mean, I would say that I would say it's a peer group that has caused it to be at that level where everyone, if I take the top 5 developers, Prestige, Embassy, RMZ, Brigade, Salarpuria, if you go to across all their projects, the quality has been quite consistent. So if you're competing at that level, you will have to deliver, firstly that quality. I think the other big thing that always gets overlooked, which I feel Bangalore developers do much, much better, is actually maintenance. So you'll see that, in a lot of developments here, let's say in Bombay, even in really expensive housing, the lobby, is not properly maintained. The association doesn't want to spend money in refurbing the building. The paint is, largely peeling from, exteriors of buildings. And that reduces really the property value to some extent. But in Bangalore, I think what we do well is that everyone actually maintains, their properties quite well. Almost every major developer, I think, has a property management vertical as part of the business where they take care of this. Amenities is another big part of what makes the differential over there. So apart from having tech and also just delivering as per quality because of the standard that has just been generally set, the maintenance and the longevity of an old property in Bangalore, you will see last much, much longer, and the demand continues to stay quite high. City center properties in Bangalore are very small residential type of buildings. You must have seen maybe 60 units, 50 units, 80 units, that size. But even today, those are probably the units that are selling at like the maximum price, because the maintenance and the community built in those developments is so big and such a big part of why someone goes to a building. I think that is like one key difference that I don't see in many other places. Community, maybe in Bombay, you still see there are like these very high profile apartment buildings where
Lower parel
all
and
the
all.
bankers, stay in one building and they play poker together or whatever. But
Pickleball.
at pickleball now, but the maintenance part and the quality of the actual architecture, the development, there is definitely a stark difference.
Yeah, yeah. No, Karan, but tell me about WeWork India and how does it really work, right? We are going to a different tangent now because I was genuinely curious about this and I wanted to know like how does it work? How is it different from the global WeWork? And I have the perspective of the We Crashed the series that I've seen on Apple TV, right? So I am coming from that perspective.
So I don't know where to really start from it. I mean, the crux of the business, what we do is, if I have to put it as simply as possible, is we take space and wholesale. We use design, aesthetic, and some amount of like science behind it to really break it up into smaller units and provide a hospitality service layer on top of it, right, which allows people to feel it's a much more convenient way. There is a lot more flexibility. Before something like WeWork, commercial real estate was a very static model where you would take an X amount of space and you would fill it up depending on how your company grew. A lot of times you end up taking space more than what you would want. But your business is so dynamic, right? Businesses have cycles. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. You need to be able to shift and turn and be as nimble as possible. So the flexibility that we offer, where you can start with, let's say, one desk, go up to 100, and then tomorrow scale it back to 50 if you wanted, brings that variability into an office model that never existed. So if I had to stack it, it's really basic infrastructure of space coupled with us actually fitting it out. So doing the capex, actually putting the interiors into it where you don't need to come in and spend, and then there's a services layer on top of it where we're doing the maintenance of the space and all of that, and really you kind of look at it like hierarchy of needs, sort of pyramids where we're trying to cover, each and every part of it. And then the final part is the social, element, feeling of belonging, feeling like you're in a space or part of a community that is with other entrepreneurs, other people who are building, startups, building businesses with Fortune 500, a space where a Fortune 500 company and an early stage startup can essentially really be in the same place and feed off each other tomorrow. Is a funny thing that we've noticed is that every large company wants to be a startup and every startup wants to become a large company, and we're in a place where all of that actually
but
happens.
why does it happen? ऐसा क्यों होता है?
I mean, when you become big, you want to become nimble again. You want, you feel clogged up with the way that how things working. You're not able to innovate. You see, younger companies being able to try new things, which you can't do because you have so much process already built in. And then a startup is trying to build process to try to become, where there's more certainty. I have a more stability. I have a longevity of my business is beyond sort of hand to mouth that most startups end up becoming. So there's always that happening, in which you will notice in most companies, and so that's what we do, and I think that we do that the best, better than anyone else, and we do it at a global level. We as Embassy partnered with WeWork in 2017. So WeWork India was the first ever licensed or franchised partner for WeWork, where WeWork didn't own any part of the business. And at that point, it was, WeWork was in a huge expansion mode. They were essentially moving out of the US, looking at new markets. India was not on the list of priority. It was more China, Europe, markets with higher ARPMs and, more mature real estate market. we obviously being from India saw the potential. India being an extremely young country, average age of the workforce was 28, 27, 28. The quality of commercial stock or office space that existed was archaic in a sense. I call it a little bit the cubicles of death. When you walk into an office floor and you see these 4 feet height 4x4 cubicles where everyone said you can't really even see anyone, you just see the sea of top. That's what offices used to basically be like. And being someone who was 23, 24, I knew I would never want to work in that kind of environment. So, and I know that, everyone, at least from a millennial generation or now next, wants a lot more from the place that they work than just the pay slip and, stability. That used to be the primary reason why people would work in a company. Today, the reason you work at a company is because it's doing something exciting. You want to go there for the culture of, what it stands for, what the company represents also. And you want to go into the office to, obviously have professional growth, but also personal growth. Your friend circles end up being there. We spoke about Bangalore being a migratory city where people are moving in from all parts of the world. So, and you end up spending maybe 10 hours in the workplace, more than you would spend at home. So that space needs to give you a lot more than being a utility space where you just come sit at a desk. And seeing that trend, I really thought that India, would be an amazing place for WeWork to grow, and that's how the partnership actually started. What we did differently, honestly, is really not rocket science. We actually were just very focused. We didn't break our focus from the core model of what the product was. We didn't try to, go venture into too many different branches. We really focused on building what was then called co-working, the co-working model, which then progressed into flex and now managed office and, multiple other things that we've been able to do. We invested all of our own capital versus WeWork, globally was venture funded and SoftBank, and money was just thrown. And
What is happening to that now? I'm just really curious.
So it's honestly been a huge roller coaster. In November of last year, they went into a we crashed happened, that all of that happened. New management came in. SoftBank essentially
Masayoshi angry.
Yes, exactly. And SoftBank basically took control of the business, brought in new management, a new CEO who was brought in to really turn it around. Was doing a great job, but couldn't foresee something like the pandemic that hit, which was another drastic blow, to the business financially, especially because more than 50% of the portfolio was in the US, and the US office market is still in shambles, right? Because no one is really coming back into the office, unlike India, where everyone is pretty much 100% back in the office. That has not happened at the pace in the US. So the pandemic hit unexpectedly. That put further strain on its financials, and somewhere in the middle of that, they actually successfully listed, on the New York Stock Exchange through a SPAC model, which was again another craze during that 2020 to 2022 time, the reverse listing model. Stock crashed. Stock went from $13 to $13 when they filed bankruptcy. So pretty much another 100% drop. And you can see it was from 47 billion to, I think they listed at 9 billion. No, when they listed again, the second time was 9 billion, and then, dropped all the way down to, 15 million or something like that. I think was the number when they finally filed for bankruptcy. So in the US, you have something called a Chapter 11 bankruptcy. There's a Chapter 11 and Chapter 7. Chapter 11 is a tool for in a capitalistic society for businesses who have messed up to get a get out of jail free card. So essentially through a court system, you can go and restructure your business. And there in the court, you have to prove that I have no financial means to take care of the creditors that I have in my business. And so through a court process, you can essentially wipe off your debt.
इंडिया में ऐसा नहीं हो सकता.
No, in India, it's the NCLT, which takes, forever. And in India, bankruptcy is still a taboo word. It means you're done. This guy is fully finished and he destroyed himself. But in the US, they use Chapter 11 essentially as a tool a lot of times to restructure. So a lot of retailers have used it in the past when markets are down to use it as a way to renegotiate rents. Companies like Delta Airlines who have leases on planes have been able to use it to get out of lease payments and things like that.
Donald Trump also.
Yeah, Trump has gone through bankruptcy 3 or 4 times, I think, filed for bankruptcy. And really what you're able to do is go into the court system. You are able to, through a legal system, wipe off the debt. So the creditors, have to write off those loans, or they take equity basically in your company as in lieu of the debt that was provided. And you can go, leases also are considered as unsecured creditors. So you can actually go and cherry pick which locations, which leases you want to keep depending on whether it's profitable or not. So when you look at WeWork, Global's context, they had close to about 500 leases in the US, or maybe 350, 400 leases. So go individually negotiate all of that would have been, impossible really to do. And so in the last, they went into that process in November, and actually last week they came out of the process successfully. So today WeWork Global is slightly smaller than they were when they went in, but they have no debt. They're actually profitable, even though it's maybe at a small margin. They are a much healthier business financially. Customers are still flocking back. We still service some of the top companies in the world, globally, because even through all of this, the product and the product has still been as relevant as ever. In fact, post-COVID, it became even more relevant than it was pre-COVID as a model. And honestly, now they have to chart their path back into maybe growing and building the brand again and becoming more and more profitable as the years go by. So so we did WeWork India, and over the last 7 years, we've sort of grown it in India. Have proud to say that we've been able to push the market also, where there are a lot of other players who have followed and grown with us and along with us. And India today is the largest flex space market in the world.
What is flex place for people who don't know?
Flexible working spaces. So co-working, having models like WeWork, other operators like WeWork. In the last few years, there's been a concept called a managed office also that has come up, where large companies would rather go to an operator like us and say, find me a space, build it out for me and operate it for me. I just want one person to do it. The parallel you want to draw is really to, let's say, like a hotel model. So in the past, landlords used to build and run their own hotels. It used to happen a lot, especially in the US. You would build a hotel, the landlord would actually end up running it. Then brands started forming, the Four Seasons, the Hiltons of the world, the Conrads of the world, where your expertise was drilled into managing, building, designing a hotel, and then customers prefer to go to that because you're spread across the globe. I'll get a standard service, that I know exactly what I'm going to get. They know exactly what they're doing. I don't have to deal with multiple people. I think a very similar thing is happening in commercial real estate that we're building, where you see multiple operators. Today, a few weeks ago, we had a company, the first listing in India in the flex space segment globally since someone like WeWork, which is a huge moment, I think, for us as a segment. So that's really where the landscape is going. And most companies today, you'll see that at least 10 to 30% of how they're thinking about their office, they want their workforce to be flexible. They're either giving remote working, come to the office 3 days a week, or work where you live type of,
That is
you
very
know, that
popular.
yeah, that's getting a lot popular. So if that is happening, you will see that less people want that same percentage. You don't want in a fixed office. You want maybe in a more flexible setting. And I think that's where the segment will get to, where we'll probably be 20 to 30% of entire commercial real estate, at least to start with, in the next 5 to 10 years. And then we'll see how it goes.
Amazing. Brilliant. Niranjan sir, I wanted to talk to you about real estate education. What is like the career in real estate? What does it look like? And I feel like not many people like know and talk about it. So from your perspective, what does it look like? What is the scope? And like how can a 22-year-old like me get into this domain?
Let's look at the entire space. We are actually the second largest employer in India after agriculture. But we have several layers at which we operate. So let's look at the bottom layer, which is the carpenter, fitter, plumber, electricians and all. 15 years ago, when I wanted 100 of them, I would get 350 coming to my site. Today, when I want 100, I get 20. So the skilling level at that level is now required to be growing at a pace which is unbelievable. And that is why that segment is the most needed segment in India, and that is the easiest segment to train. You need just 6 to 12 months of training in order to get that segment. So that's a big one. The second is the mid segment, and that's a sad segment because it's the easiest to deal with. So you get somebody who's doing marketing. When he goes into a college or anything and does marketing, they never talk about real estate examples. So most of the people who come in with a degree and a qualified degree in marketing has no idea about the domain knowledge of real estate because he's never dealt with a single example of real estate in the marketing space. So that's the second area, and that's not only for marketing. It's for so many aspects of skill sets, which may be chartered accountancy, maybe other things, but they're all skill sets which are there. The next level is the management grade. So you take the MBAs of the world, and you get very good MBAs across the world, including in India. But unfortunately, their focus has not been on real estate. So again, they are with zero domain knowledge, and they take a long time for them to actually, the freshers to get in. So because of that, I've started a school of real estate, an MBA of real estate in Mumbai. And we are hoping that the youngsters who come out of this will be absorbed and taken up, that they will have the domain knowledge and the MBA degree. So there are several layers at which I think education as far as the real estate space is lacking. And unfortunately, it's from down to top or top to bottom. I mean, whichever way you look at it. And the next one, which I shouldn't talk about, but I have to, is civil engineering. A gold medalist of civil engineer comes to my site. He doesn't know how to construct a building. He has no idea, he's not been to the site. He doesn't even know what is good quality material when it comes into the site.
Why does that happen?
Because he's never been to a site and he doesn't need to be on a site. So it's one of the places where you need to intern, where you need to train and you need to do. The Institute of Engineers needs to mandate that every person who comes out of a civil engineering college must be interned during the college time and must spend at least 20%, 30% of the time on sites in order to do it. Like a chartered accountancy requires to be interned, the civil engineering also requires to be interned and would be a different type of civil engineering to do it. So it takes 5 years of a fresh civil engineer who comes to the site to actually pick up the entire domain knowledge for good civil engineering construction. And that is another reason why we don't get quality civil engineering works to be happening in India. So I think you've touched a very touchy subject in terms of education. And the growth of the infrastructure and real estate this year will grow by 15% compounded this year alone. So the need of all these people in our space is huge and humongous. In the lower category, which is the skilled workers, the growth is going to be 100% this year. And the need is even more because there's a backlog of skill development to be done. So we can actually solve the unemployment problem of India if you really were focusing on getting skilled people into it. Like we talked about IT some time back. It's easier to get an IT AI skilled person, but it's very difficult to get a carpenter or a plumber or an electrician or a painter who's qualified. There's no such thing. So I think education in this field is necessary, and if we can focus onto it, we're doing a big service to society, and I'm glad Prime Minister talks about it, we do it, but on the ground level, we haven't done much. So I'm hoping that we will do it in all these segments, and most of the other institutions will focus on real estate, because we are getting so many engineers who are qualifying. In fact, engineering colleges are closing down. If they really got people who got qualified and trained, I think they'd all get fantastic jobs.
What type of roles are these? Like,
well, you have road construction, you have port construction, you have airport construction, you have houses construction, you have industrial thing, you have warehouses construction. Construction and engineering civil engineering is so much, and we're talking about trillions of dollars, which we are going to now spend on all these activities, and it's growing, and it's already mandated. So you can do it. The first cabinet decision of Prime Minister Modi after 3.0 is a decision to construct, to create, give subsidy for 3 crore houses in the next 5 years. So you can imagine the growth which is going to take place in all these segments for the housing sector. You heard Mr. Gadkari talk about, he's now constructing 35 kilometers of national highway per day. He's going to construct 50 kilometers of national highway per day for the next few years. And I'm not even talking about waterways. We are going to double the number of airports which are there. We don't have skilled manpower in the country to actually do this with quality and standards that we need to do. And on the other side, we talk about insisting on good quality. If you're not going to get a labor force which is trained, how are we going to do it? We might as well import from China then. If you're not going to get skilled manpower, what do you? Because all their workers are out of jobs.
It's not sexy to like get into real estate.
Exactly.
This is what I hear.
If real estate needs one really sexy company that can glamorize the sector. Today, if you ask anybody, do you want to get into real estate? See, the intelligent ones think it's too down market. Okay, I want to do something more skilled and more challenging. The bottom level, as Mr. Hiranandani mentioned, carpenter, that's a different segment. But if you can really get that one guy who can really, disrupt the sector in the mind space and make it cool. WeWork, the way he was describing it, in my mind, I just kept thinking that the idea is you're just making a workspace cool, right? Means, of course, he's doing many things inside that. But if you ask me in one sentence, whenever I go to his BKC plot and the Andheri one, the first thought is when you just enter, that there's a vibe. It's something like what in your city, Koramangala or Indiranagar or in Mumbai, only Bandra, right? You
Third wave coffee smell.
something like that. It's a bit like that. You're creating that vibe.
Yeah.
Real estate needs to get that vibe. Even, somebody asked me a few days back, Vishal, why are there so few real estate journalists? I said, I'll be insulting myself, but I'll still give you the answer. Because most reporters think it's beneath them. Why do you want to be real estate? There's no skill. You'll hear the same. There's nothing interesting happening, right? Or if it's happening, people aren't talking about it. So, which is why there are just a handful of names, 5, 6, and because of those being there, they get disproportionate advantage.
Yeah. I think you'll see that happening as the younger generation, the next generation takes on from, some of these larger names that I know there are some smaller developers in Bangalore only doing so much more focused, let's say, like on sustainability, on technology as they're building. I think you'll see a lot of that coming in the next few years for sure.
So I think sustainability, like he's speaking, can we make it cool enough that people get, otherwise it becomes very academic, right?
So how do we make it cool?
No, I think if we can actually get the academics changed, and just like a chartered accountant requires training, give training to civil engineers, and the absorption is anyway automatic. The skill development area also. The system of skilling as far as construction is concerned, you have to first train the trainers, and then these trainers will then train the people. In reality, each contractor, each construction company should do training on the sites. And only the examinations of these people should be done by maybe institutions which are, doing this. If we did that and actually delegated the authority of training of all these people, but certifications could be centralized, I think there's a possibility of winning. And encourage every contractor, every developer, every infrastructure company in order to say that this much is what you need to do in terms of it. Put it into contracts of the governments which are there. Keep on doing the training. And today you have tools. For instance, you can create videos, you can do that, you can show them on the sites. And it's much easier to do that training instead of the system that is now being talked about. I think you need to change the method, the pedagogy of training for civil engineering or other people to do it. And the other, of course, what you said is that you got to make it sexy or something interesting that really works out about it, as you do it in the case of the IT sector or the other sectors that we really talked about.
I'm going to ask a very naive question to all of you. And that is, why do brokers exist? Why do they have to exist?
I think
and the reason I have this question is when I first came to Bangalore and my parents had to pay this 1 month brokerage fee to that broker for the house that we got. And so from there on, my mom actually became a broker for the place that we are living in. So she actually got one apartment sold. But why did this broker culture start, and why is it important? And I want to ask you also, Amit, how did you disrupt this whole space?
So basically, the same question, the question that you are asking, we also ask. So I am a first generation entrepreneur. I have zero experience in real estate before NoBroker. So we asked a very fundamental question that in today's age, when I can send an Instagram request to any celebrity in the world, he may or she may not accept it, or I can become a follower to anybody. Why can't I connect on internet with a property owner or a property seller? So that was our basic question. And why do we need this physical person who will go around and who will show my the property, asking me to sit on the back of a scooter, which has stopped happening now. I need to now book my own Uber. So the question was basically that. And although there are some amazing brokers, for example, we have seen in South Bombay, there are some really professional brokers who used to work in some MNC. Now they are brokers. They really care about their clients, and many of them are handling their clients for generations. But what has happened is, because there is no entry barrier, there is no examination, there is no regulation in this industry. So a lot of unscrupulous elements have come. So I'll tell you a story that when we established NoBroker, one day, so we basically took like a typical Bangalorean startup. We basically took a house, not a corporate building, a house in HSR layout. And we saw one day that 50, 60 people are standing outside. And we thought that there must be some political procession which is happening, and they are part of that. But they were actually a group of very angry brokers. And they wanted to come and smash all of us, destroy computers, and basically create huge amount of chaos. Because in their mind, they don't have a concept of cloud, right? So for them, if they destroy computers, if they beat us, then the company is gone.
What
And
year is this?
Sorry?
What year is this?
This is year 2015. So we had barely started, 6 months had happened. And what happened was that some couple of customers in Bangalore said that, okay, let me check out on NoBroker first, and then I will come to you. So they're super angry. They started slapping our employees. I basically just escaped by a whisker from a slap. And then And then we are basically those typical Maggu IT IMs who have never handled this law and order problem ever before, and who thought that in a Bangalore city, how can this ever happen? No Shiv Sena here, so how can this happen in Bangalore? And we, of course, did not have any contact. So we just called like a typical 100, and a police jeep came. And after 10 minutes, what we saw was that we founders are sitting in the jeep going to the police station. Well, the brokers are still there. So, like, hey, we called police. Why are we being hauled to the police station? And why are brokers still there? And of course, the local police will be much more inclined towards the local brokers than compared to us. And so after that, but then that after that it became really difficult to operate in that office, because those elements would basically chase our employees late at night. The women at late at night, they will chase them towards their home. They damaged many of the motorbikes which were parked outside. So it became inoperable to basically work
And
in
how
that.
did they get to know about NoBroker?
So they got to know about NoBroker office, or know about NoBroker in
The
general.
brand NoBroker.
Because what happened was that when we started, our concept was that we will eliminate brokers. So we will stop so we used very sophisticated machine learning algorithm to make sure that we don't allow brokers to come on the platform. So you can serve the platform, but you cannot register, and you cannot fetch a contact of a property owner. So that we have developed over years. So we will not allow a broker to use NoBroker platform. But if you're a genuine owner or genuine tenant or seller or buyer, then you can use NoBroker. So the NoBroker concept is that the owner and the seeker can connect directly with each other without any broker in between, which basically means that we save the entire intermediation cost, which is say 1 month of rent on each side or 2% each, which the builders also basically pay to the channel partner. So our question was that in resale properties, why can't we basically eliminate brokers? In primary, I understand that there is basically gaddhe khuda hua hai, you can't see how it will happen. So perhaps just technology may not fully help. But for a already made up property in resale or a tenancy, why do you need a broker? So our assumption was that. And many of the customer told the broker that let me first check it on NoBroker and then I'll come to you, which really made them angry. And I think we also put some no parking, no broker boards on these independent houses, which irked them even more. So earlier in the initial years, we used to get a lot of legal notices from some broker association in some cities saying that you are trying to.
So what would they say? It's a free economy, right?
Yeah, but see, as I was saying earlier, that there are some great brokers, but because there is no entry barrier, so a lot of bad elements have come in who are half goons and half brokers. And because of it, so don't you think it's very odd that in a country which has perhaps 1 million broker, how can everybody charge the same price? Why hasn't somebody disrupted within that community? And the reason is that they will not allow you. So if suppose a broker is charging you 1 month of brokerage, and if I open a shop just close to him and say I'm going to charge you half a month brokerage, I'm going to get beaten.
It's a cartel.
It's a cartel. So it's a big cartel which charges one of the highest intermediation costs in the entire world and provides among the lowest standards of customer service. So there is no accountability. So I remember that in Calcutta, I rented a house and through a broker. This is much before NoBroker. And I paid him some money for arranging for rental furniture. He just vanished. After he got the money, he just vanished. I kept on calling him and the tone suddenly changes. The moment the broker gets the money, his suddenly polite tone changes. And I felt that I'm at his mercy. So now he decides what he does. And many of these brokers, because they are not related with you and they don't think about long term, they will do all odd things. For example, in Bangalore, for the first time when I went and I was looking for a house, the broker basically said that, okay, I will show you some good house. He showed me some green color painted one room at the top of a building, just separate house, like you give it to servants. He showed me this is how, and he asked me a crazy amount of money for rent, because during the conversation, he figured it out that I'm new to the city. So he was trying to show me the most expensive non-moving inventory कि इसको चिपका देते हैं. And only when you say no to those property, then he will show you the good ones. And many of them will also fake relationship. So for example, I ventured into one broker office and it has been 30 seconds since I have met him. He called the owner and said, बहुत अच्छी party है, completely vegetarian. Now we are non-vegetarian. He hasn't asked me this. And many people in Bangalore are very choosy about this and they want only vegetarian tenants.
Yeah.
And the luck would have it, we ended up with that house. So every time the owner will come, my wife will try to hide the eggs in the fridge and how to ensure to portray as if we are vegetarians. So our experience was that a large number of brokers are neither caring about my well-being, nor are they basically being very honest in their dealings, and I am paying a huge amount of money to them. So there should be a choice wherein you can deal directly with the other party without a broker in between, and technology allows me, right? Because we don't have any physical people on the ground, so we don't incur that cost. So we are like a Facebook, right? The content is not ours, the consumption is not done by us. Somebody else posts content, posts property, somebody else comes to them and connect with them, and they directly deal with each other. And we provide lots of ancillary services like painting, cleaning, moving, packers and movers and so on, and we basically make money through that. So what we questioned was basic common sense, that why do we need a broker in an industry, because we came not from this industry. So I think that is our reason of questioning very basic things and starting from that fundamental assumption. And now, because machine learning is so smart, we are able to figure out a broker on a platform, because the way in which a broker would serve the website is very, very different.
How is it different? Like, what would they do different?
So I can't tell you the full secret sauce.
It is like a triangle episode.
But
You can see what triangle how does it.
But let me just give you a couple of examples. For example, a broker, you will never see a 1 BHK house and then a 2 BHK house and a 3 BHK house in the same locality. And you will not jump across rent ranges, right? You will not try to fetch property contact quickly in succession, like 5 contacts quickly. So the way in which a broker behaves is a behavior of a businessman who's trying to basically get leads. So what typically broker would try to misuse many of the other platforms that we saw. So when I use other platform before starting NoBroker, the typical behavior is that if the property in say Bandra is of 1.5 lakh rupee rent, that property a broker will post at 1 lakh or 70,000 rupees. So everybody is interested and they will click on that property. Once you reach the broker's office, he will tell, हाँ वो property आज सुबह चली गई है, मैं कुछ और दिखाता हूँ आपको, वो 1.5 लाख की है. So a broker is trying to basically create those clickbaits so that you can come to me, and then because I'm in a business, I will show you something else. But what we noticed with NoBroker, and many people asked us that, aren't you going to go and check those properties? How will you know that that property exists? And the answer is in economics. If the machine learning algorithm removes a broker, and if suppose Vishal has a property, he has at the most 1 or 2 properties. Why would he post anything wrong? Because he knows a tenant is going to come and waste his time asking him questions. He does not run a business to show 10 more properties. So he has no incentive to post wrong photos, to post wrong rent, anything wrong. So the community then takes care of itself. So that's how basically we take care of brokers and use machine learning to make sure that customer experience is good.
And what are the numbers right now? Like, how many people like use it, and how many people are able to get like
So
ads?
broadly, we the customers who register on us in terms of property owner, buyer, seller, tenants, in the past 10 years, we have cumulative 3 crore customers. Every year now we are growing very fast. We add 60 to 70 lakh new customer per year. We make more than 1,000 crore of revenue per year. Our rate of closure is extremely high, so we close more than 50% of properties who get posted on NoBroker. We do now. We have a single one-stop shop, so we provide right from packers and movers to home interiors to buy and sell to commercial also. So we do the entire basically gamut.
And how do you stay away from like the brokers attacking you again?
Secret office.
So even today, if you want to come to NoBroker office, you can't find our address.
Oh.
So we have multiple fake addresses on internet and we keep on changing them. So you can't find our office address. When you come to our office also, we have now 4 buildings, but none of the buildings have NoBroker facade. So only when you come inside the building, then there is a no broker reception logo. So we don't invite any trouble, and we are much more pally with the local authorities now than we were earlier.
So basically, his staff is all geared up to join CIA or something. But just he's talking about the part of secondary market. I've often wondered for primary sales, from the calls that you get, besides the trustworthy brokers that are there, you get spammed, right? All of us, we have our phones littered with 2 BHK, 3 BHK on offer at so and so price. Most times, the role of a broker in a primary sales is that of an escort. He's just getting you to the site. After that, the builder takes over. Then the fancy guy with all with the suit and the English and the
नहीं
presentation.
तब बिल्डर भी बोलेगा आप किनारे बैठ जाओ. He will not let the broker speak because he knows how to sell it best. तो फिर वो broker चुप हो जाता है. Then the builder guy talks directly, which is more efficient also.
So broker is then an escort only, right?
Yeah,
He
yeah.
just got you to the site.
वो lead लेके आ रहा है.
Showing choice. And that education that if let's say your first home or whatever, you don't know. Sometimes real estate jargon is different. How square foot, your carpet square foot versus chargeable. All these little nuances that are there. A broker's meant to basically create transparency and give you choice. I would say that has primarily been
And like, what is your relationship with brokers, like as embassy?
Great. I mean, so from on the residential side, I think everyone relies on channel partners to, bring demand, whether now it's online or, they continue to be the offline, unorganized brokers. I would say there's these IPCs, which is your international property consultants. These are your JLL, CBREs, Cushman, Wakefields of the world that, typically have large clients on the office side, but some of them do residential as well. And then you have a community of brokers, that end up bringing leads and clients. So I think everyone relies on them in some way, shape or form to bring leads in. And on the office side, like I said, we deal with these bigger names who have mandated customers, like a Google or a Microsoft will mandate with a CBRE or a JLL saying that globally you're the person who should find me the real estate, or I trust you to find me the right real estate. So we have to deal with them a lot. I think it's like if you look at the ecosystem, they're a very big funnel of business, and whether you like it or not, they bring customers. So at the end of the day, for you, that's what you want.
But it's a very shady business, like the things I hear.
I think it's obviously much shadier when you're looking at an apartment where you want to rent, which is 30,000, 40,000, rupees versus maybe a 5-10 crore apartment. You need a very different type of person to be able to sell, a 5 crore apartment, or a broker who knows how to navigate that type of transaction and be able to build a relationship with a large builder. Because a large builder will see through someone who is, shady and will stop working with them, blacklist, or, tell the customer that this guy is no good. But the unorganized segment of real estate, there is enough money to be made, so people will try to
Actually,
make it.
the problem here is that so the question may be that why doesn't this happen in other countries? Why doesn't it happen in US? But in US, if you want to become a real estate broker, you have to give an examination. You have to take a certification. You are bound by laws, and you cannot promise something and then not fulfill it.
And यहाँ पे you don't.
यहाँ पे कुछ नहीं है यहाँ पे because broker as a broker कोई regulated entity नहीं है.
But they are now required to be regulated.
Yeah.
Under RERA.
Under RERA only for buying and selling, but for rental,
is still not there.
There's nothing.
So I think what he's done is actually to create a revolution as far as things are concerned, and it's fantastic. But we've seen several revolutions over a period of years. Let's look at the sales of maybe 20 years ago and today. The print media was considered the icon of what you needed to get sales with. Today, print media will bring in 5 to max 10% of sales. Earlier, we would say hoardings would get X percentage. We'd get so on and so forth. So we find that the numbers which we are now talking about, where we do direct sales and others, have gone up. While as far as the brokers are concerned, the agents are concerned, have come down. But as long as they are actually doing a service and not the fact of this service, as you have mentioned it and we are talking about it, I think that segment will continue to be there. But the only difference which you are going to have is the fact that, again, we will eliminate over a period of time people who don't give good service, but new people come into it. So if we can get the examination issue or the training issue and the necessary registration issue under RERA and other authorities in the country, then we will slowly but surely reduce the number. Today, you have a death sentence for murder. People still murder. And you have also death sentence. So similarly, you'll have bad brokers. But my reading is that if we regulate it correctly, we are already doing it in terms of buying and selling, also regulate it in terms of rental, this is going to be mitigated. Eliminated? I don't think so.
And brokers should exist because the brokers who are good, they really help the customer.
There is a service given by them. So the question is, whenever you provide a service, the co-working space is a big service which is being provided. It's just not real estate. Many people look at Karan's business as a real estate business. But real estate is a component of his service. But in reality, the service element of what he's doing is much bigger than just the real estate. Otherwise, every real estate person would provide co-working space. But because not everybody is an expert on creating co-working spaces, then every builder is not getting into the co-working space. Otherwise, why would WeWork be an icon? Because they provide a differential service in the segment. Similarly, in the case of brokers, what he's done is create a no broking thing, but he's making 1,000 crores of rupees in no brokers. So it's not that, it's just that the model that he has created is a unique model and also trustworthy. So nobody is going to be misguided. There is a methodology to use technology, as he talked about. He talked so much about the technology that I'm wondering, I don't think anybody in real estate uses as much technology as you do. So, I mean, it's good to hear. But what I'm trying to say is that it's good to have these compositions also. So there is an alternative opportunity to be able to resource this also. But believe you me, if you have a good broker or a good company doing it, and international property consultants also have got goodwill from all over the world. And that is why many of the companies trust them. And when they go into different countries, including India, they say you have to deal with them. And they are the ones who are going to actually help you to decide which one to take. So I think every service element in any industry, including the broking part of it, if you do it well, if you do it honestly, if you do it correctly, I think it's a good business to be in terms of it. But if you do it badly, if you're a cheater, if you misguide, as you gave examples of so many of them, and they disappear, as they said, after they take the money part of it, I think that's a challenge.
Can the concept of can part-time and a good broker exist together, in your view? Can a guy who's a part-time broker be a good broker?
Well, it's like a part-time doctor or a part-time lawyer or a part-time this thing. There's nothing wrong in that existing. But do you want professionalism or you don't want professionalism? If you want only an introduction, then a part-time person is wonderful. I know you, so I become a part-time broker. So anybody becomes a broker then. But if you want professionalism to come into a sector, then certainly we want training, we want examinations, we want regulations. All that needs to come in order to create professionalism in any sector to it, including construction labor. In countries abroad, the plumber is certified, the electrician is certified. Can you imagine asking an electrician in Bombay who comes to fix your house, are you a certified electrical engineer? I mean, there'll be no electrician in the country at all who is a certified electrical engineer, and you're asking him to do it, and which may catch fire tomorrow morning. So I think all that has to grow into a professional thing, both in terms of labor, both in terms of broking, in terms of everything. And of course, it's already done as far as developers are concerned. So why not?
So what is the number one traction channel for getting these flats or apartment units sold for you particularly? Like you just mentioned, ki print ads doesn't work that way.
No, it's changing. So if I'm selling a South Mumbai apartment, there would be a different kind of a thing where the emphasis where some of the channel partners would actually be leading the ruse in terms of it. While if I look at something like Panvel or otherwise, the channel partners would take about 25 to 30% of the business as total. So you get 80% business done over here through channel partners, and there will be 25 to 30% through channel partners. So I don't think there is one answer, there percentage that fits all. I think it's varying and depends on how you are also structured. And again, a lot of us have now trying to use technology in order to do ourselves. We set up call centers. We also have websites. We also have all the technology which we are learning. And maybe he can help us to learn a little more.
I'm sure he's already
I'll come to you and
Yes,
maybe you can help us in some of the technology
The reason
ideas.
I was asking a question was I was curious why influencer marketing hasn't gotten into the real estate space. Like, why don't I see like a Hiranandani have a influencer promote a new unit that is coming out?
We do, but we don't use that as a prime focus. It's because the company already has a credibility or a track record or this. So an influencer will only add on. An influencer doesn't become the prime marketing tool. While in companies which are not known, the influencer becomes the major role which will take up. So depending on the position of the company in the marketplace, the track record, the quality, the branding, the number of years that you have delivered, the situation will be different. If I'm brand new, I would have to go to all of them, including influencers, to run the market. It's not that we don't talk to influencers, but they're not as much important for the purposes of doing a sale as it would be if I was, maybe 2 years in the real estate field.
Also, it's the decision maker age is, like Amit said, maybe between 30 and 40. Not being driven right now by influencers, more by the more traditional maybe forms of.
Also, I think today's influencers, one builder told me an extremely good line of today's influencers. Instagram, you go, people are showing homes all over the place, right? Yeah, 2 BHK at so-and-so price. He said, today's influencers are primarily brokers who know how to use social media well.
But if you see NoBroker platform, so we are not selling a specific property. For NoBroker platform, influencer marketing works really well. So we have tried many influencers. It works really well. In fact, many a times we have not paid anything. Suddenly we see a huge increase on any business of ours. And the reason is because some influencer has put a video without asking us, but he has put a video talking about this service of ours.
Perfect. Amazing. That was a video on real estate. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking out the time and being a part of this video. I'm sure people learned a lot from this. If you're still watching, comment below Limitless. Thank you so much. I hope this was valuable. Share it on social and tag all the wonderful guests that we have today. And I'll see you in the next one.
Thank you.
Thank
Ishan.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you.